All right. It is Friday, April 9th, and man, I wish there were some better movies coming out to talk about, but there's still plenty of stuff to discuss because we just had a fantastic fourth episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We did have one movie come out into theaters, and as always, in April, the NFL draft is coming up, and I will be discussing the running back class of this particular draft. No guys like a Saquon Barkley or Adrian Peterson at the top, but there's plenty of value to be found, especially on day two. But we start things out Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Today was episode 4 of the new Marvel show. I guess you can't really call it new anymore. As I mentioned last week, episode 3 wasn't one that I was particularly pleased with. It just kind of bored me. It felt like not a lot was happening. It was low energy to me. I got to tell you right now, that completely shifted in episode 4. This show has won me back entirely with this episode, and I'm going to get into spoilers with this one because there's just so much to discuss, and I feel like if I didn't get into spoilers, I'd just kind of be dancing around it, and I wouldn't have too much to say. So if you haven't watched episode 4, short story, go watch episode 4, then come back. It's on Disney Plus now. I think it's about 55 minutes long. It's the longest one so far, but go check it out. It's well worth your time. So we begin with Bucky Barnes, and he is in Wakanda. We saw the end of Black Panther. I think it was the first end credit scene. He's in a tent, and he's walking out, and someone tells some kids to leave him alone because he's been through a lot, and he's in Wakanda, and we never really figured out why. We see a little bit of that at the beginning of this episode, and he's getting the programming out. You know, the book that had the words in it that kind of activates the Winter Soldier as opposed to just, Bucky Barnes. He gets that taken, and it's a very emotional scene. She's reading off the words, and you can see he's terrified. Just look in his eyes. He is terrified that it's not going to work. He's going to hurt a lot of people, and this is all going to go terribly wrong. However, it works out for the best, and Sebastian Stan has done an incredible job this series. In this scene, he just conveys so much sadness, relief, inner turmoil, and he's done a good job of that. We saw that therapy scene where him and Falcon are talking about, if he's wrong about you, that means he's wrong about me. And this is a very tormented character, and I'm glad that this show exists because we get to see different sides of these characters where they might just be side characters in an Avengers movie or in a Captain America movie. But here, they're front and center, and we get to see the things that otherwise we wouldn't. And this is something that it blew me away from the start. It hooked me from the get-go. And trust me when I say that it did not let go. We saw at the end of episode 3, the Wakandans want Zemo. Why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? Zemo, I think, is his name. Daniel Bruhl's character. And man, that was a great way to end the third episode. I think I mentioned last week that I was really excited to see where it would go from here. And it did not disappoint. It's coming from all angles. Sam and Bucky are getting it from Captain America, or fake Captain America. Sorry, let me not do that to actual Steve Rogers as if he's a real person. The Wakandans are coming after Zemo. The Flag Smashers, and I didn't really care about that angle so much in the previous 3 episodes, but I'll tell you here. I think that as it all kind of comes to a head, you see everybody's motives for things, and nothing feels, I don't want to say unjustified, because killing is involved with part of this, and that, can be murky waters, but let me tell you, the conversation between Carly and Sam you get to see, one of the first times we saw Sam, he was working at the VA in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and we get to see that calm and patient therapist type side of Sam Wilson here that we haven't really been able to see since. And it's a really beautiful scene. You watch it, and he's trying to get inside her head, figure out why she's doing what she's doing, kind of talk her down a little bit. But you just know that it is all going to that peace can't last. And John Walker just comes barreling in. Carly, you're under arrest. Huge fight ensues. The Wakandans come in. They want Zemo. He just sneakily gets out of there because everybody's fighting each other. John Walker says you have no jurisdiction here. And the Wakandans basically just say, I don't give a damn about your jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction is wherever we are. And that was one of my favorite lines of the whole show. I know I didn't say it word for word, but basically what they said is, we run this, get the hell out of the way. And there is no power in the MCU quite like a Wakandan woman scorned. My God, these women just kick so much ass. They would do anything for... I hope they kind of dive into that Black Panther too. It's like, yeah, it's you would kill anybody for this, for your country, right? And any second thoughts about any of this? And I really hope they dive into more of the that system in Black Panther too, because it, while beneficial at times, it's also kind of messed up. But when it's happening to fake Captain America, you don't mind at all. Just this throwdown going down. It's a great fight, but it ends with Falcon negative version 2.0. He dies. I think Carly kicks him in the chest, or it might have been Carly's friend that did it. And as soon as that happens, John Walker just loses his mind. And we get one of the best shots in all of Marvel Studios as John Walker kills this guy violently, publicly, a bunch of people recording on their phones. And this is not the Captain America that we should be seeing. It's not the Captain America that anybody has seen. It's a brutal, violent, and it ends with that shot of John Walker just standing there looking exactly like Homelander. I don't know if any of you watch The Boys. If you should be watching The Boys, first and foremost. It's definitely a hard R version of a show like this, but The Boys is one of the best shows on TV right now on Amazon Prime, and Homelander is pretty much what if Captain America / Superman, but really evil. And I couldn't help think about Homelander when I saw this shot of John Walker just standing there with the shield bloodied, filled with nothing but rage. I think the most interesting angle of this show comes from everything involving the shield. In that, why Sam gave it up, why it means so much for Bucky, for it to be used correctly and in the right hands, the government and why they decided to... I hope we get a little bit more into the government's role in all of this. And then John Walker, you see him take some of the super soldier serum, not, inject it just yet, but you see that it's weighing on his mind. The lives that could have been saved if he had the serum back when him and his buddy were in Afghanistan touring. Clearly, he's seen a lot, and he's suffering from a lot of PTSD. I don't think this character is without some positive merit in that regard. You can tell he's going through a lot. But you put on that uniform, you grab that shield, and that's not Captain America. That's not Captain America at all. And I love the fact that we are seeing all the fallout from... I kind of hate the word the blip. That makes it just sound like it was a very short thing. Call it the snap. That's what it was. That's what happened. That's what he did. Call it that. But we're seeing the ramifications of that. People were gone, and we saw in Endgame, it took some people a lot of time to get over, and a lot didn't. But the people that were still there and were able to, pick up the pieces, life did kind of get better. People had to work together to fill roles. Jobs were more plentiful. You had to fill those roles because suddenly half the planet's just gone, and there's a lot of important positions that need to be filled, but there's no job shortage. There's no food shortage. The life for people on the planet was maybe Thanos had a point. I've always thought Thanos might have had a point. I understand that killing half people is terrible and wrong, but you can see that there were a lot of people that, hey, things were better for us this way. We were able to thrive. We were able to succeed in a world that no longer had some of the restraints that it did. And that takes me back to Carly here and her group and why she's able to accumulate so much loyalty. That's something that's brought up quite a bit is, look, she's feeding people, she's taking care of people, and that's how a lot of organizations, good, bad, or otherwise, operate, is you have to amass some sort of goodwill, and that's what Carly and the Flag Smashers are doing. I love the way that this show is taking a very, I don't want to say broad approach to these things, but you're getting different angles, and the villains have reasons why they're doing what they're doing. They make sense. There's an end game, no pun intended, to what they're doing, why they're doing it, all of that. But you can also see why they need to be stopped and why Sam and Bucky are doing the thing, and the inner turmoil they have. I mean, Sam's got people back home. He's got family that he feels, look, I'm an Avenger. I helped vanquish Thanos and bring half of the planet back, but I can't help my sister with her rent and keeping this restaurant open and making life better for my family. I've become really fascinated with this show and its wide approach to the effects of what happened in Infinity War and Endgame, and how this impacts all the characters and what other villains or groups might come out of this. I know this is the last time we're going to see something like a Flag Smashers or something. I don't know. I'm not that well versed as far as Marvel comics go. But if you look at the MCU down the line, we're seeing a lot of new characters. We've got the Eternals. We've got Shang-Chi and I think it's the Ten Rings. We've got the Multiverse of Madness coming up. Marvel isn't pulling any punches, and I love the fact that on this show that's supposed to be for all ages, all audiences, on Disney Plus, we won't put Deadpool or any R-rated content on our channel. But we're gonna leave us with this. Bravo, Marvel! I'm proud of you for this. Way to hook me back in. The stuff with Wakanda, keep it going. I like how they kind of have their fingers in everything. Yeah, this is it. This is what I want when I want a Marvel TV show. This is the best episode of anything that Marvel has produced TV-wise on Disney Plus. I'm not as well versed with the Netflix stuff. I've liked some of it. Luke Cage, I really liked that. Then again, it also had Mahershala Ali as the villain, so you can't really go wrong there. Definitely a big fan of the directions they're taking this. Next episode's going to be a little over an hour, and then we only have one more after that, and then we get a week break, and then we're into Loki. So the MCU, I think after Loki we go right into Black Widow in theaters, or Disney Plus, but I'm seeing that in theaters. So the MCU, you got me back. I was always MCU. That's they've done so much to make me happy, but the TV stuff, you won me back. Very excited for next Friday. Let's see where this goes. Keep it in this direction. Big fan of episode 4. Check it out if you haven't. All right. There's a movie that came out last night. Technically, it opens on Friday because they have Thursday, 6 p.m. movies a lot of the time. I hope that is a thing that starts to make its way back. I don't think they're doing that with the stuff that's being released on HBO Max and theaters simultaneously. I think that just comes out on Friday, so they don't have their HBO Max premiere ruined. And that movie is Voyagers, starring Ty Sheridan, Lily Rose Depp, Fionn F. Whitehead, and Colin Farrell. And it's a story about, you've gotten these before, Earth is uninhabitable, and we have to leave it. And we found a place where we can go and repopulate and colonize and be safe and happy and all that stuff. But there's 84 years of travel in between all of that and right now. So we have to put these kids on a spaceship, and they're pretty much going to be test tube babies so they don't miss any families or Earth or anything. And we're going to have about 20, 25 of them, and only about, let's say, none adults to look after them. And Colin Farrell says, I can see the problems coming a mile away. Let me go and parent them, be with them, just make sure things don't go crazy, because we're putting them on this ship when they're 10 or something. If you can't tell by the look on my face, this movie, it was kind of dumb as hell. Let's start off with our lead here. Ty Sheridan and Lily Rose Depp are the two characters that we follow the most, as they are teenagers. They've been given this drink called the Blue, and one day Ty Sheridan finds out that it is drugging them and keeping them pretty much sedated. It lowers their pleasure sensors because they want to keep them, they want to artificially birth kids. I'm trying to say this without being too gross. When the girls are 24, they'll be artificially given kids, and they don't want any sex. It seems like a weird thing when you're trying to repopulate everything that you don't do that, but this movie's dumb as hell, so I'm not gonna fight them on that. They're the main characters. Something happens, and it causes a bunch of strife on the spaceship. Characters stop taking the blue, and everybody's trying to have sex with one another. It's really dumb and stupid, and you shouldn't see this movie. It's a big waste of time. I left the movie yesterday, and I really felt like, wow, that's 2 hours of my life I will never get back. I don't say this a lot. Usually, if there's a movie out, I'm going to say, check it out, see what you think of it. But the biggest thing I can say about this movie is it's just a waste of time. I don't really see anybody getting anything from this. And it kind of all comes down to the writer and the director, Neil Burger. Now, this guy has done Limitless, which I think is good but overrated. He did the first Divergent movie, which is better than it should be. Still not great, but a lot better than the sequels. And not much else. And this is all on him. The writing is terrible. Some of the direction that a lot of these kid actors, oh my God. I hope you stayed in school, because this whole acting career isn't really going anywhere. One of the big problems with this movie, and Neil Burger's partially to blame for this, but you got to talk about the actor on the screen. I think that picture really tells you everything you need to see. That's Fionn Whitehead, who's actually the star of Dunkirk, a movie I love. One of the things in Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan made a great decision. He didn't get to speak a whole lot. There wasn't a lot of dialogue. This kid's out of his damn mind, this movie. This is like a miniature Joker, but with none of the fear that the Joker would instill in people. There's a part in this movie where he just yells, "Where's my pleasure? I want my pleasure now." Like, calm down, Matt Gaetz. We're not 15 minutes into this movie. You need to settle your ass down. And this guy has no subtlety whatsoever. There's no direction as far as like, hey, maybe don't act so much with your face. Calm down a little bit. and build to that. You know, if there's a sense of tension that's constantly building within you, I feel like he's the most tense 15 minutes into the movie, and then he's just trying to be a calm, collected leader as things kind of break off and people start acting crazy. And you can clearly tell that this is supposed to be an allegory to Trump supporters. I mean, it does not even try to hide it, even down to weapons being on the ship and how they should be used. They make no bones about it. I like a little bit of subtlety. Black Klansman is a movie that is not subtle at all. That movie is about as subtle as a microwave to the face. But it worked for what Spike Lee was going for. The actors were on board with all of that. They were able to deliver that well. The direction was good. The writing was clever. It was a good story. This movie does not have any of it. It just has this guy. And yeah, this scene, he starts yelling and you're like, dude, why the hell are you yelling? What are you yelling about? You don't know. I'm watching the movie and I don't know why. This guy's just insane. The only person in this movie who I think really brings any real substance is Colin Farrell as the father figure to a lot of these kids. But he's not in the movie very long. He's in the movie for like maybe 10, 15 minutes. That's why he has the "and" next to his name. He's not one of the main characters. And it's a shame because he's the only one that seems like he's actually been in front of a camera before. I don't want to be harsh, but a lot of these kid actors, I mean, you ever seen those commercials for the NCAA where it says, 100,000 student athletes and 99% of them will go pro in something other than sports? These kids are going to go pro in something other than sports because it's just not working out. It's the least subtle thing ever. Either characters are dead silent or they say everything that's on their mind all the time. There's no in between. You have a lot of characters that literally do nothing in this movie. Nothing at all. And we're supposed to be threatened to them at a point. They're trying to hide on the spaceship and they make a spaceship. They try to make a spaceship and it looks like the size of a damn high school hallway. But it's this whole spaceship with all these different corridors and areas and stuff. But you don't get that scope. It feels about as big as a high school hallway. This movie's disappointing. And I probably shouldn't have even seen it. But I wanted something to do, I guess. And this fills time that I'm talking. So when it comes to a grade, I don't want to give it an F because I didn't leave incredibly pissed off. It was a waste of time, I will tell you that right now. It was a complete waste of time. But I'll give it a D-. Don't see this movie. Don't bother with this. I feel really good to say this in particular. You have better options. I haven't been able to say that in a while. You have better options in theaters right now. You can see Godzilla vs. Kong. You can see Raya and the Last Dragon. I wasn't the biggest Chaos Walking fan, but it's much better than this. At least it has a personality. It's doing something. Tom and Jerry's not a better option than this. I'd rather get hit in the head with a baseball bat and a school bus at the same time than go watch Tom and Jerry again. Yes, I did see Tom and Jerry. Didn't pay money for it. I watched it on HBO Max, but I still felt like I was ripped off. This was just a waste of time. I wasted 15 minutes driving to the theater, 15 minutes driving back, and an hour 50 watching the movie. Don't do this. Hug your family. I know that takes up a lot less time, but it's a more efficient use of your time. I never leave feeling like you should never see this. It's not that level of bad even. It's just boring, and you can be doing other things. Better your life. Drink water. It's a better use of time. Drink water. It's a better use of time. Drink water for 2 hours. Okay, maybe not continuously. Like, go to the bathroom. Maybe, step outside for a little bit or something. But you can do other things besides watching this movie. Trust me. All right. Next up, we have the NFL Draft. The 2021 NFL Draft coming up at the end of April. I'm going to go through the running backs, the top 10 running backs, and teams that I expect to be selecting running backs in the NFL Draft. We don't have one of those top guys, a Barkley, a Peterson. even, Trent Richardson when he was coming out. But I'm going to put up the number one running back that I think in this 2021 draft, the one I expect to go first, and the one that I think is the best. And I'll be back in about 10-15 seconds to discuss why I think Najee Harris is the premier running back prospect of this draft. All right, so like I mentioned, Najee Harris is RB1 in the 2021 NFL Draft. The kid from Alabama just absolutely lit it up in 2020. This guy is a solid three-down back. He can run between the tackles. He can get outside. He's very powerful, as we've seen. He has great body control. We all saw that hurdle that he had against Notre Dame in the national semifinal game. He's not necessarily the most elusive back we've ever seen, but he can get out of trouble when he needs to. He's an incredibly underrated receiver, soft hands. I'd like him to go somewhere where they use him out of the backfield, because Alabama has always had so many receivers. When he was there, they didn't really need to use Harris as a running back too much. But I think he has the ability to show a lot more when he's in the pros. He had 57 touchdowns in college. 30 of them came last year in a season where the SEC had a shorter schedule. That's insane. 4,600 yards over his 4-year career. He is my running back number one of the 2021 draft class. Now, where do I expect him to go? When do I think that he will be picked? Najee Harris, again, I mentioned, he's not going to be a top 10 guy. I don't expect him to be anyway. The NFL draft will always throw us for some curveballs. You don't know what's going to happen. But if you're asking me personally, I think he's a top 15 prospect. I think Najee Harris is an incredible back, and I'd like to see him picked that high, but I don't think he will be. I don't think the NFL views him and the running back position with that importance. That being said, I think Najee Harris will go late round 1 or early round 2. I could see him getting taken by the Dolphins or the Jets with their second first-round pick, maybe the Steelers or the Bills at the end of the first round. But if he falls into round 2, which I actually think is more likely, I expect him to be the number 34 overall pick of the draft and selected by the New York Jets. I think the Jets are going to go quarterback at 2. I think they're going to go cornerback at number 23, and then they'll get a back out of the backfield to replace Frank Gore, because having a 75-year-old running back is not the way to go. Adam Gase, thank God you're gone. My RB2 is going to be a little bit controversial, because I don't have Travis Etienne. My RB2 is Javonte Williams out of North Carolina. This kid broke out in a big way in 2020. He had 22 touchdowns last year, 33 touchdowns in his career in a Tar Heel uniform, over 2,800 yards in 3 seasons. He's a good downhill runner that's going to punish defenders for getting in his way in the box. He's a 3-down type of guy. He can pick up short yardage. He can pick up on blitzes. He can catch the ball. He's not the quickest guy, but he's somebody that I think is going to always work for that extra yard. And if he does get into space, he is tough to catch from behind. He's my RB number 2. He won't be the only North Carolina running back on this list. This is somebody that just like Najee Harris, I really want him to go somewhere that's going to utilize him in the backfield. North Carolina, they had another back there that was able to take some pressure off Williams when needed. But Williams was a guy I wanted to see on the field all the time. I think he can be maybe not that type, but he can maybe be a more punishing version of what Le'Veon Bell was in Pittsburgh. I think that's his ceiling, to be a more powerful version of that back. Now, where might Javonte Williams go? Well, I don't think he's going to be the second running back off the board. I think he's going to be number 3 off the board. And he's very dependent on does anybody go round 1? If Harris and Etienne go round 1, I'd love to see him end up with the Jets at pick number 34. I don't see Williams going in that first round. More than likely, I think he's a mid-round 2 pick. He could end up in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Give Eckler some help. I don't think Joshua Kelly's going to be the guy to do that. I could see Javonte Williams going there. More than likely, I expect Jacksonville with their second round pick. I like James Robinson, and I don't want them to replace him, but a lot of teams, when they get that undrafted guy who breaks out, they don't trust him to be able to keep doing that. We saw that with Denver with Phillip Lindsay. They were always trying to replace him, and they ended up doing that with Melvin Gordon, and I expect the Jaguars to do the same thing with James Robinson, and they kind of try to push him out for my second running back here, Javonte Williams. He could also be a candidate for Pittsburgh. Maybe Buffalo takes him at the end of round 1, but I think he'll be the third running back off the board. The second one, he's number 3 on mine, but I think he'll go before Javonte Williams. That's Travis Etienne out of Clemson. This guy was a dominant running back in college. He is fantastic at reading blocks. He's an asset in the pass game no matter how you slice it. Blocking, receiving, he can pretty much work in any offense, and I'd be comfortable seeing him line up. I'd like to maybe see him line up in the slot. That's something. All these running backs, I'd love to see more pass work in the pros. I think they're capable of it. However, the reason why he's running back number 3 and not number 2 on my board is I'm not sure if he's going to be as much of a workhorse as Najee Harris and Javonte Williams are going to be in the pros. He's also taken a lot of punishment in college. He was a 4-year starter at Clemson, and he's had some fumbling problems. Yes, he has 78 career touchdowns in those 4 years, 6,100 yards, and he's played big in big games, but I wouldn't take him round 1. I do think he's a good mid-round 2 guy. However, I don't think he'll last that long. Ultimately, I could see him going late round 1 to Buffalo or to Pittsburgh, but I think he falls into the second round just like everybody else, and I think he ends up in Pittsburgh in round 2. The Steelers really want a running. They've been trying so hard to find that day 2 running back, and I think the running backs are going to drop. Just because I said that, there's going to be 3 running backs taken in round 1 because that's how it works. But I'd really like to see Etienne go somewhere where he doesn't have to carry the brunt of the workload. I'd like to see him really be used as a passing back and then get more carries as he goes along in his career. He's taken a lot of punishment at Clemson. I'd like to see him get some extra work on holding on to that football, not fumbling it. But I think he'll be successful wherever he goes. And again, put him on the field in passing downs, and this guy could have an extremely long career. My RB number 4 might not be the one that you expect either. And this is the guy I think is going to go 4th. I have a different opinion than some. That's Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis. I think he is, I have him above Michael Carter, and I think he goes before Michael Carter. Many are going to see him as a situational back because of his weight. He's 191 pounds, but I think he has the ability to be an every down back. He's a guy that is just going to find a way to get positive yardage. He can make people miss in tight situations. He can get out of them, get 2 or 3 yards where you didn't think you'd be able to get back to the line of scrimmage. He's someone who will absolutely be lining up in the slot on the next level. Extremely hard to tackle in the open field. The main knock against him is some might think that he is a one-year wonder. He opted out of the season last year. He had over 2,000 yards and 16 touchdowns in 2019 for the Memphis Tigers. This is a guy I expect to go late in round 2, maybe early in round 3. There's a bunch of different ways that this could play out for Kenneth Gainwell, but I expect him to either go second round to Buffalo, but I think more likely he's going to go early 3rd to the Atlanta Falcons, and they're going to get an absolute steal whether they go Trey Lance, Justin Fields, one of those quarterbacks at number 4, or they just say, screw it. We're giving Matt Ryan everything. We're taking Kyle Pitts. We're taking Kenneth Gainwell, and we're just pushing all our chips into offense. You're not going to be able to outscore us. What's the use of a defense? That could be what happens with the Falcons. Kenneth Gainwell, I think, is going to be a day 2 steal for whoever takes him. Don't think this guy is a one-year wonder. I love Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis. He's somebody that you should have your eyes on if your team is looking for a running back on the second day of the draft. The 5th running back off the board and the 5th running back on my board is another North Carolina back. That's Michael Carter. Michael Carter split carries with Javonte Williams. He can also be a 3-down back if needed, but he wasn't used in that way in Mac Brown's offense. He is very shifty, hard to tackle. He has good hands, 4,000 yards in 4 seasons, 28 touchdowns in college. I think that the lack of being a primary back for really any point of his career at the Tar Heels, it could cause someone to take him higher than, say, a Gainwell or a ETN, because maybe there's less tread on those tires. Gainwell just sat out a whole season, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Carter's going to be a round 3 guy. I would be shocked if he went higher. I don't expect him to drop lower. He's somebody I could see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers snatching him up in round 3 and adding. That's a team that doesn't have a whole lot of needs. They return a stupid amount of guys for a team that just won a Super Bowl. So they're going to look to add at positions in the secondary, maybe some more receivers, and at positions where they've had injury problems, whether that's defensive tackle with Vita Vea or edge rusher Jason Pierre-Paul has had trouble staying on the field sometimes, or just running backs in general have a tough time staying healthy. So Michael Carter could be the pick for Tampa Bay. He could also be going to Atlanta, Los Angeles. Carolina might take a running back around 3 or 4. They lost Mike Davis. McCaffrey's had injury problems, and even then you want to have somebody to be able to back him up when he does need a breather, because he's a workhorse, but coming off an injury, you want to make sure he's able to play late in the season. They might try to get somebody that can give him a break when need be. My running back 6 is this guy right here, Trey Sermon from Ohio State. We all saw what this guy could do in the college football playoff, especially the Big Ten championship game against Northwestern. He single-handedly won that game for the Buckeyes. He was running all over the place. I think he set a record for most yards in the Big Ten title game. He's a big back who can run all over the field. He can catch the ball, very hard runner. One of the main knocks on him is he did suffer a collarbone injury in that national championship game against Alabama. Ran for 3,300 yards and 29 touchdowns in his college career that he went to Oklahoma and Ohio State. I think he's going to be a very punishing RB2. That's what I expect. I personally think that Trey Sermon is going to end up with he could be that guy that the Panthers take in round 3 or round 4. I want to see this guy go to the Giants and be a good backup for Saquon Barkley. Barkley has shown that he, when healthy, is easily one of the best backs in the NFL. Running, receiving, not so much blitz pickup, but Sermon can come in and, if Barkley's not on the field, I think he's a good backup running back option and give Barkley a bit of a blow. We're getting to that point where it's guys that are going to be situational backs or RB2s. That's where we're at with this one. I think Trey Sermon's going to make a lot of linebackers and safeties' lives hell coming off the bench with fresh legs. He can give a team a lot of juice. Imagine this guy for Tampa Bay. He can give a team a lot of juice. San Francisco would use him up real well, I think. We'll have to see where he goes, but I think a good career as a backup running back. Not quite maybe a Lamont Jordan type from the 2000s, but keep him as a backup. Don't try to give him the 25 carries a game type of role. My 7th running back is an interesting one, and this could go a number of ways. I have Mississippi State back Kylin Hill at number 7 on my running back chart. He opted out about midway through the season at Mississippi State. It was a disappointing final season. Mike Leach didn't really want to use him, had no need for him in that air raid style of offense, which I think is ridiculous because Kylin Hill might have been the best receiver on that team, and he just refused to use him. Kylin Hill, great pass catcher, very quick feet. He had 3,100 yards, 22 touchdowns in 3.5 seasons. I think this is a guy whose success is very dependent on where he ends up. I would love to see him in Denver, maybe Green Bay, somewhere where there's no pressure on him and they can bring him in to be a situational pass catcher. I could see him being a complete bust, but I could also see him filling a Darren Sproles type role for somebody. Catching the ball is what he's going to be doing in the next level, which again, I think is very stupid that Mike Leach couldn't find a use for this guy. He left, and he probably should have stayed in the draft in 2020 when he originally declared. He went back, and now his draft stock, he's probably going to be a mid-5th round pick. He's not going to be the 7th back off the board as far as I'm concerned. I think there are going to be guys that get taken before him that shouldn't be. Like this guy right here, running back number 8. That's Randolph Stevenson out of Oklahoma. Now, when I said that he shouldn't get picked before Kylin Hill, that's not a slight on Stevenson. I think Stevenson knows what he is, and whoever takes him is going to know the exact same thing. He's a bowling ball type of back, 227 pounds, surprisingly good receiver out of the backfield for somebody at that weight, though. He won't be expected to be an RB1, but he can definitely carve out a role. 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns in his 2 years at Oklahoma. I think this guy could have a LeGarrette Blount type of career. All the teams that I've mentioned as far as getting somebody to take a load off their number one back, Giants, Panthers, but I'd really like to see this guy go to the Los Angeles Chargers. The Thunder and Lightning combination of Austin Eckler and Randolph Stevenson could be really good, and I'd like to see the Chargers invest some early day 3 capital at the running back position. I don't think Joshua Kelly's going to quite work for them. They definitely need to go offensive line early and often in the first 2 days of the draft. But Stevenson is somebody that because he knows what he is, he can fill that role. I could see him being a late round 3 pick. I could see him going early round 6. There's a large variety of where he can end up. I think he's one of the guys that's going to go off the board first on day 3. My number 9 back isn't even a guarantee to get drafted. This is somebody I think is being slept on because, maybe it's because he was at a small school or he received a heavy workload in college. I don't know, but you guys need to stop sleeping on Jarrett Patterson out of Buffalo. This guy was a beast. 4,100 yards and 53 touchdowns in 3 seasons. But, we don't look at the numbers here as to why somebody's going to be good. We look at the traits. We look at the production. We look at what we've seen on the game film. He's a smart back. That's something. He is a back that is going to be very coachable at the next level, and somebody's going to find a use for him no matter where he ends up. He finds holes, and he just accelerates through them. Again, a positive yards type of guy, someone who always falls forward. He's not the most spectacular athlete, but he can definitely carve out a role in the NFL, and there is a team that I am saying, you need to pick this guy, you need to pick this guy, you need to pick this guy, and that's the Denver Broncos. Last I saw, they didn't have the most depth behind Melvin Gordon, and I think that having Patterson behind Gordon will take a lot off of Melvin Gordon, and Patterson's going to be the Broncos' offensive line has improved, and they're going to continue to improve it throughout the draft. I'd really like to see Jarrett Patterson end up in Denver. Buffalo would be another interesting spot for Patterson to end up. Philadelphia could be a location for him behind Miles Sanders. They have a good interior offensive line, again, when healthy. I know they're older, but they're still very, very good in that department. I want Patterson to get properly coached up, and given San Francisco gets him, he's going to be on the field. That much I know for sure. I want to see him play. I think he's going to defy whatever round he's picked at. He could be undrafted. He could be a mid to late round 5 guy. You don't know, which means there's really a wide range of places he could end up. He could go to Green Bay. He could go to Kansas City. He could go to, I don't know, the Buccaneers. There's a lot of places. The Cardinals. The Cardinals desperately need a running back. They just let Kenyon Drake go. Take a late round flyer on Jarrett Patterson. Maybe you should take a running back in round 3. Maybe go Carter or Gainwell. I'd recommend that for Arizona. But if you want to hold off, go later. Go with Jarrett Patterson or my final prospect, RB number 10. That is Chuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State. Again, this was a guy that if you just looked at the stats, you would think he'd be a second or third round pick. 3,900 yards, 36 touchdowns in 3 years in the Big 12. He's a smart runner, good in between the tackles. Nothing really stands out when I watch Chuba Hubbard's tape, though, as far as translating to the next level. I think he's another guy that's going to be completely dependent on fit. I don't know that he's going to be as good of a pass catcher as the guys at the top that I mentioned, and that's why he's a little bit lower on this list. Randolph Stevenson, Kylin Hill, I think they have definitive roles that will be carved out for them on the next level, and that's why I have them higher. Chuba Hubbard is somebody that I could see getting buried on a depth chart if he goes to the wrong place. Another guy, very wide range of places he could end up. He could go early round 4, he could go late round 6, and there's no telling. He'd be Buffalo. He could be buried in a place like Baltimore where they just want running back depth with J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill there, and he could end up buried. He could go to Cincinnati and be behind Joe Mixon and maybe get a chance to get some carries. It's very dependent on where he goes. I've said that so many times with the quarterbacks, running backs too, scheme fit, offensive coordinator, what you're trying to do. Is the running back ahead of you going to stay healthy? There's so many things that could set these running backs up for success or for failure, and there's more than 10 running backs in this draft class that are going to get taken. You've got guys like Larry Roundtree or Khalil Herbert, Puka Williams, either of the Louisiana backs, Trey Regis or Elijah Mitchell. There's so many backs. Javian Hawkins from Louisville, Raheem Boyd from Arkansas. So many backs that could get taken that it's not just going to be these 10 guys, and there's probably going to be somebody on this list that you're going to have on your fantasy team next year because that's just the way the NFL works. Running backs, they get hurt a lot, and some teams go through 4 or 5 running backs in a season, especially if you're a team like the Niners or the Dolphins who like to rotate guys. We'll see how this goes. Running back classes are very, very tough to predict because there's such a short lifespan for running backs. We all know this. So it's tough to predict. It's very tough to predict. Next Monday, or I guess just Monday. Yeah, I can't talk good. I'm going to look at the receivers, and I'm going to look at the tight ends. There's not a whole lot of tight ends, but the ones at the top, damn, they are good, especially the one, Kyle Pitts. And then receivers, Alabama just keeps producing just top-notch talent. Jamar Chase, another Ole Miss guy, despite the fact they didn't win a whole lot. Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney, Rondale Moore, a lot of guys to get through. So I'm going to go through my receivers, my tight ends, where they could end up, how I think that it's going to go, what roles they might fill. I'm going to get through all of that next week.